Okay, let's get back to my presentation. Okay, I don't have a PowerPoint, just my funny face. I will mimic a PowerPoint. I will act as if I were a PowerPoint using psychosynthesis technique. But now let's get serious. Very serious. Reflections and genius. Well, I don't agree with Patrizia. The title could have been Reflections on Myself. But it's not a joke. It's not a megalomaniac thought I had, but you could read Reflection on, forget the myself with capital S. My presentation will be full of information. I know you psychosynthesis people don't like that. You want practical things, you want recipes, how to get better, how to help yourself. And I also try to give some knowledge. I collected some information I want to share with you, because I think information is very important if we are able to transmute it into wisdom. And I know you can do that. But if you really listen, not only to me, but to yourself, maybe something will come out of this presentation, even though the time is very short. I start with a quote by Carl Gustav Jung, who wrote, "In the last analysis, we count only for the essential we embody. If we don't embody that, life is wasted." Too bad Massimo's not here, because it's about embodiment. Embodying a quality, embodying our essence. Then a quote by Roberto Saggioli: "The study of genius can lead to a scientific understanding of the superconscious." And that is not normally, we normally don't speak about this theme of genius. I think it's a bit out of style, unless you don't get to some self-help books. You may find on Amazon or in the United States that tell you how to become a genius in a few days. If you follow their instructions, I saw a book. You can be Leonardo da Vinci in 5 days, or even better. Even better. You can attend a 3-day workshop and become a genius for only $5,000 maybe. But you are geniuses in a way. And that's what my presentation will be all about. Let's start with the path to synthesis. Psychosynthesis is a path to synthesis, which is essentially a path to creativity. The path to creativity is the path of the genius. So we know what synthesis means approximately. Merriam-Webster Unabridged Dictionary, in a general sense, defines genius as a composition or combination of parts or elements as to form a whole, thus to create something new. Synthesis is in its essence, creative. We may reflect a bit on the etymology of these words, on the semantic relation between genius or Janus, according to the Latin spoken by the Catholic Church, but it should be genius, from Latin, generare or generare, which means to breed. The Greek gignestai, somebody told me at breakfast this morning that they say gignesta in modern Greek. While in school I was taught to pronounce gignestai, meaning to be born, and synthesis as an overall creative generative process leading to unity and wholeness. Okay. I wonder if you are really aware that each of us has a genius within. I underline, has a genius within. It might sound megalomaniac or grandiose, but in my opinion, it is exactly the opposite. It is a declaration of humility. It's not like being like Dante, like Assagioli, can be a role model, an ideal model, or be like Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci. That's not exactly the point. According to a well-known Hasidic story, you know what Hasidism is, as a mystical Jewish movement in Northern Europe in the 1700s. Well, the story goes, Rabbi Susia, at the end of his life, said, in the world to come, they will not ask me why I wasn't Moses, I wasn't Abraham, but why I wasn't Susia, why I wasn't myself. We all have a mission, which is unique, a unique field of service, and we need to actualize what Carl Gustav Jung, I say Jung and not Young. Recently I heard from an American Jungian analyst. I'm a Jungian analyst, which is not really the right pronunciation, Jungian analyst. So, we have our own Dharma, our own Tikkun. If you want to use another Hebrew word, that means Tikkun, means litaken, means to repair, to restore something that has been forgotten somehow, has been contaminated, or has been lost. So, we'll try to go to the essential. But now, a few words on the story of genius. And the word genius has a peculiar semantic complexity. In other words, it's a complicated word. It's a strange word. Let's forget about the semantic complexity. It might sound too intellectual. A genius was originally a deity presiding over an individual's birth and then became each person's guardian divinity. It is also related to the term ingenium or ingenium, designating the specific qualities and eventually the exceptional natural abilities of a person. Genius goes certainly beyond individuality as a pre-individual, impersonal, spiritual presence that inhabits a human being or a place. Have you heard genius loci or genius loci, the genius of the place? You feel that some places have a special energy, and that's the genius. Socrates, as we know, had his own daimon, which is not a devil, but it's a daimon. It's an angel speaking through him. And in almost all religious traditions, we find the story of the guardian angel. That's an overall view. The guardian angel. Is he? We don't see it. We don't see it, but it's there. And esotericism, some of you might be familiar with words like the solar angel, the angel of the presence, and other words. In the Jewish tradition, it is believed that prophets were inspired by Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, speaking through them. And the great Kabbalists received their mystical secrets by a Magid, a spiritual entity, an angel, manifesting as a voice. Here we know that the Jewish tradition is not visual. It's more about hearing. It's about Shema Israel, listen Israel. It's not about the visual aspects of the spirit. But throughout history, the idea of genius became more and more personalized. The great individualities of the past, in arts, literature, science, and philosophy, the romantic cult of geniuses, the scientific, positivistic approach of psychology and neuroscience gradually obscured the original sense of a spiritual presence, a tutelary angel within. Of course, in common speech, a genius, we know, is a very talented person. Every mother wants her son to be a genius, and sometimes she really thinks he is. I'll skip some parts and I'll get to, because it's interestingly enough, the topic of genius is a bit forgotten in modern psychology. I checked out the APA Dictionary of Psychology. APA is the American Association, Psychological Association. And the entry genius is one of the shortest. A few words, which simply states that genius is an extreme degree of creative and intellectual ability, or any person who possesses such ability. That's all. Genius is an extreme. I'm not sure that's the case, really honest. But now here we are. There's a radical shift in present culture from having a genius into being a genius. Nobody would say, I have a genius. They say, I am a genius. A misunderstood genius. They don't understand me. They don't accept me as a genius, but I really am. My mother always told me I was a genius. And my grandmother too. So I want you to focus on this passage. Having a genius, being a genius. It would be great. It would be a true advancement if this shift, this paradigm shift, would be correctly understood. That the genius is not the personality, the genius is the soul. Not the form, but the quality. Not the personality, but the higher self. Geniuses sometimes, now I'm talking about the great genius of the past, who often speak about themselves occasionally, explaining how they got their inspiration. My favorite is by Dante. Every Italian knows that. I'll quote it in English first by Longfellow's translation, which is not very modern, but understandable. It's from the Purgatory, where we all are somehow. And I to him, one am I, whenever love doth inspire me, note, and in the measure which he within me dictates, singing go. Io sono un di quei che quando amor mi ispira noto, e a quel modo chi ditta dentro vo significando. That's Dante's source of inspiration. Not by a chance, he mentions love as the source of inspiration. Asajoli would have talked about vertical telepathy. Have you heard that expression, vertical telepathy? And now another way to look at the theme of the genius, I'll start with John Dryden, who's a famous and greatest English poet of the 17th century, who wrote, "Great wits are sure to madness near allied, and within partitions do their bounds divide." He means that there's a thin line between genius and mental insanity. They say in Italy, genius and folly, genio e follia. That doesn't mean that every genius is crazy and that every not very mentally healthy person is a genius, of course. But we need to get deeper into that, because that's where Assagioli really got started studying this pseudo-pathology of some spiritual experiences. Paradoxically, Charles Lamb, an English essayist of many, many centuries ago, who really suffered from mental illness. His sister killed her mother, their mother. He wasn't really mentally healthy, but he wrote a beautiful essay, which is very, it's amazing. We could read it even now, entitled "The Sanity of the True Genius." And he states that talent manifests itself in the admirable balance of all the faculties. Admirable balance of all the faculties. Because I often say, when we find these quotes, we say, oh, that's psychosynthesis. That's truly psychosynthesis. And and madness is the disproportionate straining or excess of any one of them. So it's imbalance. Well, to get the long story short, there is also an interesting way to look at great men, great human beings. Sounds better, because if I say great men, I don't know why still the archetype of the genius is rarely related to the feminine, but there's some reason, and we have to change that. Not only culturally, I mean it's an archetypal thing. Because we know that Thomas Carlyle and mostly Ralph Waldo Emerson, who wrote a famous book, Representative Man, emphasizes the uses of great men. Assagioli liked Emerson very much. And he says beautifully that the study of many great individuals leads to an elemental region wherein the individual is lost. The individual is lost. In England, Sir Francis Galton, in his Hereditary Genius, and Havelock Ellis in the study of British genius, they mainly focus on the biological, hereditary, or pathological aspects of genius. There is a slight difference in Ernst Kretschmann, who's a German psychiatrist, who wrote The Psychology of the Man of Genius, but I'm sure you don't want to hear that, which is very interesting to me, but not all of you. And I try to empathize with you. I see people going away. I see other people falling asleep. That's the power of the genius. There is a genius also for sleeping. We don't know. We don't know. But in mythology, we are embraced by a genius when we fall asleep. Okay. That's all. Okay. We have a really big change with Jung, Carl Gustav Jung, who emphasized the healing power of genius. And Roberto Assagioli. It's interesting to say that I just want to quote a few words of Genius by Jung, who said, "The genius nearly always intrudes and disturbs. He speaks to a temporal world out of a world eternal. He says the wrong things at the right time." That's Jung. Assagioli cared a lot about the idea of genius, starting with the study of gifted children, which is very important. And he points out a significant differentiation between two classes of geniuses. This is Roberto Assagioli. Please, at least listen to him. Not to me. The first is that of the great and universal geniuses who have an all-round self-realization and have achieved a more or less permanent self-realization with many ways of expression, blending their personal I consciousness with the higher self. The second, those who have some extraordinary gift specialize in one direction, such as art, music, literature, mathematics. But I can tell you all this, which is very important, and I think that self-realization and psychological disturbances as a very important paradigm shift in considering the genius. Very important. Because it's about depathologizing the idea of genius. Both Jung and Assagioli cleaned up the stigma of mental insanity and pathology from everything that goes beyond the so-called special normal, which I would call pseudo-normal, a pseudo-normality. We live in pseudo-normality. I conclude, cutting off most of what I wrote. We're not expecting great geniuses as we had in the past. We're not expecting another Michelangelo, another Raffaello, or Leonardo, or Einstein, or whatever you want to think about. And that means, and this is my point, that probably the genius of the future will manifest beyond individuals, beyond individualities, in all human activities, in group and individual work, and in nature. Nature as an expression of the soul of the world. I deeply resonate with the very ancient treatise on the sublime by Longinus that beautifully states, it is natural to us to feel our... Well, he says that when we contemplate a piece of art, we feel as though we were the artist. It's a matter of co-creating. In front of nature, in front of art, if we get into the right inner attitude, it's about co-creating. We become co-creators. No matter what. If I saw the Pietà by Michelangelo, I don't care who was the author. It belongs to my soul. That reconnects all of us with the one soul. I don't know if you agree about that. Okay, I will finish. So not only artists are supposed to be creative, we all are. And living creatively with its lights and shadows, our own life will become a piece of art. We may unlock our inner genius through creative imagination and goodwill. In our inspired action in all walks of life. Possibly for others, this can be achieved through meditation, study, and service, maybe, individually and as a group. But I mean that each of us will become in his own way a genius in a subjective unity with the group genius. I haven't had enough time to speak about the group genius, which is, in my opinion, is very important. And here I would talk about the genius of psychosynthesis. We all could be related and connected to the genius of psychosynthesis, working for a new consciousness and a new civilization. That's it.